it's about being able to fire people. Even when I started, they're like, okay, we'll give you 19,000.
Hello and greetings to Streetwise Economics Podcast. Ruth Kudzai, I'm super excited that we finally, made time to connect. Greetings to the audience.
Likewise, Isaac. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you so much. So, we are going to have a conversation about your story, your business enterprises, how you are running them. And hopefully, I'm gonna have a conversation to learn from your story in terms of how you manage such a thriving business. But also, we talk about money, it's sometimes
Yeah.
even from a business level and even sometimes even personal finance and investing. So,
hmm
why don't you start off by telling us who is Ruth Kudzai? Of course, I have the privilege of getting to know you.
Thank you so much, Isaac. Thanks so much for the opportunity. So my name is Ruth Kudzai. I am a growth strategist. I am a serial networker,
Yeah.
and all around just advocating for individuals to reach their potential. So through my coaching, through speaking, those are the things that I also do. So to summarize everything I do, yeah, it would fall into one of those categories.
And you are currently based in the UK, right?
I'm based in the UK, yes. I do spend some time in Zimbabwe, but yeah, mainly in the UK.
That's wonderful. And, for the interest of the audience, so I came across your Instagram post and I really admired one thing that, sometimes you may be successful, but, the desire to actually coach and, support other people, of course, maybe you can be paid, but I think for me, the value and the impact that you can make, whether it's with clients, let's say, those that want, the services that you provide to actually
Yeah.
see them succeed. So I was like, okay, this is very interesting. But also because I'm originally from Zimbabwe, so I think I also aligned with you in that regard.
So much with it. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, thank you. That's very kind.
yes. So what is your day-to-day like? Because I see you are speaking on high-level events, you are networking, what does it take to be a speaker, a networker, and a serial entrepreneur in that regard?
Yeah, I would say I just do it, Isaac. My days, I like what I do, I'm always telling people that I just do it.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes is what I do. So in line with all those different things, my day could look like having client meetings, because I do have the consultancy where I help people with problems.
Yeah.
So business people, entrepreneurs, leaders, they usually come to our agency with a problem and we solve it. We pretty much fix the situation for them. Um, so that can look like, yeah, that is very diverse in its nature, because not one problem is always the same and it requires different solutions. Doing a lot of research, actually, as a consultant in general, you need to be ahead of the curve, so reading a lot, finding out what's going on, keeping up with the trends. That also forms part of my daily routine, whether that's just through on my phone, through LinkedIn, or through actual, Google. That also forms part of my routine. I do coach a small handful of individuals. So, depending on the day, I could have a coaching call where we're just working through how we can develop that individual into a leader. So, it's usually around sort of like career or business growth. Those are the topics that I usually cover. And then with the speaking engagements, it's not every day. But if I was saying, for example, today, if I have a speaking engagement on the weekend, I would be putting together, okay, what are the key messages that I'm trying to portray? Do I need to have a presentation? I start creating the presentation. I would then organize like myself, my travel. And then on top of that, there's the house duties. I am a wife, so I have to take care of the home. And yeah, make sure that that's all good. And then just life admin. So my day to day just looks so different. But honestly, I just always say like I just do it. Because I just never know what my day sometimes might look like. So I could be pulled in all different directions.
That's typical of in entrepreneurial life. Like for example, for me, I woke up, I trade in the stock market. Sometimes I'm
Mm.
doing this, but I'm also, I've family. So I'm curious as well because I come from a background to the extent you're comfortable, where sometimes the girl child used to, have a lot more workload, like household chores and stuff like that. I'm sure now things have really improved in that regard. And of course, it's different. Some people
Yeah.
grew up, whether you're a boy or a girl, you do the same chores, right? But how
Hmm.
to balance being a successful entrepreneur and also being a wife in that regard? I'm just curious because sometimes it can be challenging, right? To kind of like
Yeah.
draw a balance on those.
100%. And I think it's a great topic that you raised. I think um advice maybe to other women as well, or even young people, it's very important to find a life partner who's your friend, a life partner who understands your ambition from the dating stage. Um, and that as a woman, you are able to articulate what you also wish for your life.
Yes.
So I think to me that is the foundations before I even get to I'm married, I'm this, I'm that. The foundation was in the dating stage or in the finding my partner. I was very clear, I'm very ambitious. I'm gonna want to try quite a lot of things, but I will aim to fail fast. I will let you know what I'll be getting up to. I need support. We had that difficult conversation. We didn't sort of like wait till we're married and then it's now all of a sudden, hey, I need to start flying out to this place and to that place. And I also understand my role. So you're right in the sense of, the woman's role has evolved,
Yeah.
but I'm a wife first, Um so I always prioritize my home because I'm here most of the time. Even if I go out there, I'm still gonna have to come back to my home. So I need to make sure that the home is always my priority and it's always something that, we have that open communication. I've been very fortunate in that my husband is very supportive. We understand each other, we communicate about like what's acceptable, what's not. So even when I accept certain jobs, I already know that, okay, will this cause something or will it not? And generally understanding my role that when I'm in the house, I'm a wife. I'm not the boss babe that people see out there. I'm not this leader. I am just Ruth, the wife. And then when I am there, it's also for my husband to recognize that this isn't Ruth, my wife at home. This is Ruth. She has her own profile, you know. So I think those all those ingredients just really help. Especially, when you are a woman. So just understanding your positions in the different roles that you're in, making sure that you communicate, and communicate with impact.
And you raise a very interesting point. I remember I read this book by former President Barack Obama, and he mentioned that even after carrying the weight of such a huge, like an office with such a huge influence globally, whenever
Hmm.
he wrote in his book, whenever he would go back home, he would be a husband, not the president of the United States of America. And when you
Yeah.
see his daughters and stuff, those things sort of like grounded him. So I actually learned from reading his book to say, look, well, regardless of, however, because sometimes I come from a culture generally like people attach a lot of significance on the title, whether you're a boss,
Yes,
stuff, right? So it's good that
absolutely.
have those boundaries. Hopefully, our
Yeah.
audience will learn something from you. If you don't have any other comment, then we can transition to the other aspect of finance, business, and personal finance.
Yeah.
Now, you wanna tell us like how easy is it to run such a thriving business because you have a team of people and stuff. So what is it like to manage people?
Yeah, I think when it comes to business.
Dear viewer, thank you so much for tuning in to this podcast. I really appreciate you tuning in. But did you know that only 10% of all the people who watch this podcast are subscribed. So if you're one of those people who are not subscribed, I highly encourage you to subscribe so that you can get notification when I post new podcast and other content on personal finance and investing. In return, I promise you one thing. I will bring in guests from different parts of the world who have different experiences in personal finance, investing, and from different career walks. Now, the goal is to inspire you and to have these people in conversation with me share their experiences so that we can both learn from each other. If you have any questions, you can also put them on the comments so that we can respond to your comments. I hope you enjoy this episode. Have a wonderful time and may the markets be with you.
I think when it comes to business, it's about it's about being able to fire people. I think that's like one of the hardest yet vital advices I can give to anyone is
Yes.
that, when you're starting out a business, you you want to hang on to people because they were there from the beginning, but
Yes.
actually the value or the impact of what they're doing is non-existent. So
Yes.
to me, that was one of the biggest learning things. So making sure that I have a team that is productive and shares the same vision for me, because I shouldn't have to baby them. They should just be able to do. So for me, my team is all proactive. And when they're not being proactive, we have the discussion like what is going on. I will try and see where I can help and where I cannot, and I'm quick to say, like, is this within my remit or
Yes.
it's not? Is it within my capacity to develop this person further?
Yes.
And then not. And I always like to see my team as, they're passing by me. I don't expect them to be there forever because
Yeah.
I want them to equally grow. I want somebody to come, we work together, they get the skills and then they move on. So I'm always wanting to cultivate that sort of like sustainability within the people that I work with. And this is the same model, even for our clients. We say, we're working with you on this project, but the next project, you should be able to do everything that we have just taught you, and then you lean on us for coaching, because we're not those consultants that just want to take money for the sake of it because it defeats the purpose. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
um so that's sort of like one of the things that I've had to do. um
I
yeah, so I
admire you.
answered your question.
I wanted to make a comment there because I also had a challenge with that to say, but as an entrepreneur, you then see that sometimes if you are not careful, the fixed costs and even variable costs, they can add up and then you end up losing money, right? So at any given time, I want to be constantly reevaluating to say, is this adding value to the business? If
Yeah,
I have to work with someone, is this person adding value, right? Not that
absolutely.
sometimes I can't, like give back or volunteer and stuff like that. But it has
Mm,
to be coming from a point of clarity to say, at least I know that I am spending 1 or 2 hours doing something for giving back,
that's
right?
it.
But the
Absolutely.
matter is
And I
bills
think,
have to be
as
paid.
business owners, I mean, just even what you're saying, it also comes down to, so for me, like you mentioned, I do quite a lot of things. As a business owner, I kind of had to transition from that like entrepreneur, and I have to do everything by myself to make sure I have people that are positioned. I'm always finding ways of how do I create time, you know? Do I need to be the one that's doing the consultations? Maybe not. Maybe yes in some instances, but I can find something to replace that, whether that's a system, whether that's a person. I'm always finding ways in which I can prove efficiencies, and delegation. I'm so big on delegation because I'm just like, it cuts down so much time. We want to be like, we've done this, we've done that, but actually, like, if you delegate, you find you save yourself time, because actually someone who knows what they're doing is coming to just do this small piece of work, than if you're just wanting to do everything by yourself. So those as well, I think, also contribute to how, the cost base of the business is also running.
And that's a very important point. I remember, I think, was it Strive Masiwa? By the way, he's a very successful Zimbabwean and now UK-based, business person. I think there were some estimates that is now a billionaire, but he says,
The billionaire, yeah, it made it just the other day, isn't it? Yeah.
yes, right. It's good to hire the smartest people. And then around you, they are not a threat in a way, right? As long as things are clearly structured. And then
Absolutely.
each person comes in, if they are coming in for 1 or 2 hours, it's billable. They add a specific value. In that way, you can have a awesome team at the end of the day. So that's a very interesting point there that I have also learned, in managing my own business. So what are some of the challenges as well? I know it's hard to fire people that you work with clients in the UK, in Europe, across the world, including in Zimbabwe. Are there any challenges that if someone is listening, they may, kind of like learn from your own experience to the extent that you are comfortable?
Yeah. Well, business is business. I don't think business is without challenges,
Yes.
and every challenge will be different for everyone. There are common challenges like, getting into debt, for example. I think the biggest challenge is always around communication
Yeah.
more than anything, especially when you're working with different clients from different regions. Our team have to they have to adapt to the culture and then almost, work with them in that way. And that sometimes can present a challenge because there's just some barriers that we can't seem to get over. And with that, I've now sort of like whenever I'm working with, clients outside of the UK, is I communicate that this is what we do. You can't expect, for example, you're calling at 8 p.m. wanting something. It doesn't work like that because we need to have boundaries. And this is how if you're coming to us, we may do something that's, out of the box. So like my one thing that I'm always getting, especially with my clients from Zimbabwe, is like, we don't do it that way.
Yes.
They're
That's
so
true.
stuck in their mindset, it's fixed. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, if you're coming to us, you want something out of the box. So you're going to have to give us that, authority and flexibility to get you out of the situation that you're in. So I think a lot of the issues that in business you face, you just need to learn to communicate.
Yeah.
And I was listening to somebody just the other day, and he was saying, when you're growing a business and then maybe you take it to an equity investor or an angel investor or something, they will look and see your team, because if you can manage to sell your business to someone else to get that resource to help you, then you can sell elsewhere. Again, it just reinforces that whole need of, communication. You need to be able to communicate your business to whoever is next, if that's your team, if that's your bank manager, if that's whoever, your clients as well. So I think, yeah, a lot of challenges are around communication, but they can be solved by communication. So as a business owner, I would definitely urge you, make sure that you are working on how you communicate. And if you don't, you can always hire someone like me, but make sure you hire someone who can help you with that aspect.
And you mentioned another thing that I also a challenge that I faced to say I wanted to give some opportunities to clients, for example in Kenya and also
Mhm.
like in other African countries I will not mention. But the thing is sometimes the way that people work here is different because here if you say you are going to deliver at this time, the deadlines and there are time differences, and it's very important to communicate that. So I have
Yeah.
also learned it the hard way to say sometimes people may say, oh, you are difficult and stuff, but if you can't deliver, at least communicate because what you are delivering will affect a whole sequence of other things because maybe you want to send another client or something like that. So if you just keep quiet and do it in a manner that, then defeats, the whole process, then I might
Yeah.
also let you go. You fire like you said.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's
And I
always the
also,
case, isn't it?
yes,
Because
I also,
people work slow. So
yeah,
another thing is, if you work in a business where you've got like loads of deadlines, just make sure that you give your clients the deadline. That's not the internal deadline.
exactly. So that
Because
is
you left crying and suffering. Like you just said, it affects like a whole chain of things, and people just don't understand that. So yeah.
interesting. Yeah, that's a very good point, to say if you have a 2 week deadline, you give the client maybe the person that you're hiring like a week, and then if
Mhm.
they don't deliver, then you can, do that, find a way to mitigate that particular situation. That's interesting. Now,
Yeah.
do you want to share a little bit more about, your insights about personal finance and investing to the extent you are comfortable, Ruth?
Yeah. To be fair, for a long time, I didn't know about investing. I think it was just a bit of a taboo in our community. Nobody really spoke about it. And it wasn't until I started, like, my corporate journey and
Yeah.
I would hear, you know, my colleagues talking about dividends and different things. And I was like, what is that? In our community and our culture, it's not something that ever, you're taught.
Money
Um,
is taboo. It's like traumatic to discuss about those things at the dinner table, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even things like negotiating your salary. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like investing, but those are all things in which you can increase your income and, ultimately, get a better quality of life. So I didn't start my investing journey until quite later on. So because I am naturally just a busy person, I have a system, a software that I use where I've already like picked out where I want to invest, the companies that I invest in, and I invest in the companies that I use. So, for example, Apple, companies that I know, because again, it takes a lot of like research and time to understand how the markets work and things like that. So for me, my strategy was like, let me invest in things that I use because I know I use them. It's easier to keep a track of it than for me to invest in like an electronic car manufacturer somewhere in China because I'm never going to keep up to date with that.
Yes.
So that was sort of my strategy. So I set that up. So what happens is it just takes out money from my account every
Correct.
week, and then it just splits it and then it just invests in that. I also have my I've also taken my pension into a self-invested pension fund, and
Yes.
I've put that into different index funds just so then I can be a bit more
Yes.
in control of that.
Yes.
Um and then also just investing back home in projects and people as well is another form of investing that I do
Yes.
because it's aligned with my sort of like mission of like helping people and seeing people
Exactly.
grow. So I do invest in people, and if they have ideas, that's also another way that I'm able to generate more income.
Yeah, and I always say on this platform that whatever we discuss here, it's not supposed to be taken as investment advice.
Yeah.
Investment very personal. So Ruth and I were having our conversation, sharing our experience. It may not necessarily work specifically in your situation. For example, if someone is 80 years now, their portfolio might be different from us because for me, I have some different income streams. I'm also younger. I can take a little bit of some risk investments and still be able to recover. So now imagine you are going to your retirement and then you put that fund in an aggressive fund and it drops by 80%, right?
Yeah.
Means that huge drawdown can potentially you know
You will cry.
yeah, can even die faster because of stress, right? So
Yeah.
that's what I do at Streetwise Economics to say, look, every client, I have clients, they come. The first thing that I do, just like what happens in the bank, is like, you tell me what do you want to do? What is your goal in life? What do you want to achieve in terms of your financial goals? And then we
Mhm.
discuss in terms of insights, where probably I can help you in the coaching to reach, your destination, your financial destination faster. Now,
Hmm.
that's very interesting. I'm going to ask you, Ruth, if you are comfortable. Are there any mistakes that you would say when you look back you made in your personal finance and investment journey? Again, to the extent you are comfortable. I know for me, at
Yeah.
some point, I also started investing late, but, do you want to share that? And
Yeah, no, definitely. So, I mean, there's a time where like the whole cryptocurrency was booming during the pandemic. That was my first mistake. I just heard someone talk about it,
yeah,
went onto Coinbase, bought whatever I bought without any knowledge, without any sort of thing. I was just like, well, this is
meme,
what's working. Did
meme,
that,
meme
made a
coin.
loss. Yeah, that was the first one. The second one was just listening to friends,
Yeah.
honestly. Um, I had an account with HL
Yes.
and
What is it?
Hargraves Lansdowne or something. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, and I was just like, oh, okay, like, I went and I set it all up. I was like, okay, cool, I can start my investing journey. And then through talking with some friends, this is around, like Tesla shares were going up. And there was this manufacturer, a similar company in China. I shouldn't mention them. right?
I,
And
sus
then I was like,
I suspect I know them, but I'm also not going to
maybe,
mention their name. It's not
yes.
I think.
And
Okay.
so I was like, oh, great. Yeah, these are like really cheap at that time. So I put like quite some investment in it.
Hmm.
Long story short, till this day it's in negative something, something, something. I don't even I had to take it out this year after 3 years of being hopeful that it's going to do something more.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean there's definitely like mistakes that I've made is the long story short. And I think the lessons that I've taken from that is again the importance of doing your research. And if you are starting your investing journey, then you do need to have somebody with knowledge who can guide you. So I think what you do is absolutely brilliant because people take that for granted.
Sometimes I get, I've started writing in some newspapers, and I don't mean this in a bad way. Like people reach out to me and they say, hey, okay, can you tell me this and stuff like that. And one thing that I have found is that most people, specifically those from Zimbabwe who reach out, at least those who have reached out to me, the moment you say, can you set up a paid consultation so that we can talk in details? Oh, no, that's fine. They don't want to pay money. So another point is that if something is really valuable for you, of course, you should have a good return on that investment. So if you pay $100 and then if that can help you in a way to make 1 million, that's just nothing. So it's important to do due diligence to understand the things that you invest. And you mentioned another important point to say you invest in things and services that you use, right? Not just something that's just coming from. So that is very important. Another thing that I've also learned, Ruth, is that you probably, I would agree with me on this to say sometimes if you don't have the knowledge, they are financial advisors. And of course, they charge fees, but you really have to be careful, like which ones you do. You look at their track record, kind of like understand them, and the fees, get their performance and everything. Because
Mm.
sometimes if you want to just do things on your own just because you want to save $1, right? You may
It
end
ends
up
up being more
losing a
expensive.
lot of money, right?
Ends up
So
being more
you have to
expensive.
learn to pay for knowledge, whether it's an online course, whether or something, as long as it's something that adds value. Anyways, maybe people might say, oh, you are speaking from privileged point of view, but this is my experience, and I don't like to diminish other people's experience because we all,
No, absolutely. Do you know,
yes,
I couldn't agree more because I'm a coach myself and I'm always like, in business, you need a mentor, you need a coach, you need a sponsor. It's the same when you're starting out with
yes,
anything. You need somebody who will coach you, who will actually hold your hand. Because what you find is when you get into business, you don't have a coach or a mentor or a sponsor. You're not going to get business because your sponsor is not going to be talking about you in rooms where you're not. Your mentor checks in with you every so often to just see how things are going, right? Your coach is the person who shows you the road, who's like, okay, do this and then go here and then go there. And people often neglect that. And then you find they then get into the debt, they get into all these business challenges because they didn't want to pay for a coach. And I understand. I don't think it's from a point of privilege. I
yes,
think it's from a point of understanding.
yes,
People don't understand the value. And generally, I've had clients that I just say, this is my prices, and they're like, okay. And then I have clients that, want to negotiate. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, I don't negotiate because, I know the value that you're going to get, but those that understand, understand, and those that don't. So I think even just like, encouraging the audience on here is
yes.
make sure that you are investing in the knowledge of understanding why you need certain people to help you in whatever that you may be wanting to do, be it in investing, be it in growing your career, be it in, moving positions, whatever that looks like. You definitely do need to have somebody who may know more than you because you say yourself a lot.
And you can do that by also even reading books, listening to
Yeah,
podcasts that really matter, like that may align with your areas of interest. So that's
yeah,
honestly something that I have learned to say I have to invest in myself. I travel to conferences. Sometimes I talk to people like you, and if I don't know something, I'm not ashamed to say, hey, you know what, Ruth, I have a question here. If then you say, Isaac, I charge this, I charge this for my time. I respect that because you are spending your time and there are other things
yeah,
that you could
yeah,
be doing for your time
mhm,
that could be generating income for you. So that's
yeah, absolutely.
definitely interesting. Now,
Yeah.
is there anything that you want to share in terms of like when you look back in your career path that you have traveled? And of course, I'm confident there's so much that I will be looking forward, to say you achieved that you will say, well, I wish I knew this. I wish I knew this. I wish I knew this. Now being where you are.
So what, just sort of like thinking about what do I wish I knew earlier?
Yeah, in terms of your career, in terms of business, like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, I would say I wish I knew how to advocate for myself a lot earlier.
yes,
Um, Again, it kind of comes back to culture
yes,
because we're so subservient as
yes,
Africans, you know. And we are almost scared, or I don't know what it is that we've been led to believe. Like, okay, an example may be your elders, auntie, you have to put some respect, and I totally understand that, so that's not to diminish the respect thing, but we accept whatever the adult says is that's it, that's the holy grail, and we don't challenge, or we don't sort of like put our points across. That sort of culture, right, that subservientness. I think when I started my career, it did affect my confidence because, even when I started, they're like, okay, we'll give you 19,000.
yeah,
Other people in the same bracket as me were earning 25. But I
yeah,
didn't know how to say no, I can't take 19. I need 25.
yeah.
Because it was just like, oh, so the older person is talking, and if they say 19, then you're worth 19. Um, so I would definitely say like advocating for yourself and just understanding or or getting a better understanding of your value from a young age. And it might seem like, you don't have much to offer, but just constantly just knowing like what are my skill sets? What is the value that I bring to any situation? If you're good at speaking, then you've got great communication. Do you know what I mean? So like constantly taking a stake to account of where your value lies in is quite good. And this translated to business because when you're starting, you're just like not sure about your value, so you charge like £10, whereas the service is worth £100.
Yeah.
That sort of like thing of like doubting. So just making sure that, yeah, a stock take of like what you're capable of, and even your business is capable of, and leading with that.
That's profound, and not to say, and you were clear on that, Ruth, to say we diminish what, elders say. Of course, you put your point of view respectively and say, oh, maybe I think this way, this is what I think, and just knowing your value, that is profound because I've also learned it the hard way to say the moment you start bringing ideas and asking questions, sometimes just asking questions, because I read this book. I think it is the Four Agreements, right? It says you should
Mhm.
ask questions. Don't make assumptions. People have different world, living experiences. So sometimes you may assume that, oh, okay, but maybe because that person may not have traversed or read the book that you have read, they may not be aware, and they may be saying it sincerely from a point of, like what they know, right? So if you
Yeah.
can enlighten them, like, okay, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm thinking, and this is why, it may actually end up helping both, you and that person in the room. So that's interesting. Please allow me to also ask this. As a successful entrepreneur who is a woman, do you face any challenges when you go into meetings and stuff? Do you kind of like have this sense that maybe people are possibly looking down on you just because you're a woman?
100%. You know what? Since entering the corporate world, when I was working, in corporate,
Yeah.
I actually started in transport, and transport is a very male-dominated industry. I think even up to now, there are many, many rooms that I have been the only woman, and I continue to be the only woman, and of color at that.
Yes.
So, and a young one as well in most cases, because some people can't believe that I look this young until I talk. Um, when I was a lot younger, I used to let that intimidate me because I felt that I needed to kind of like fit into the mold. I needed to be more manly. But it wasn't until I did my stock take and I was like, damn, Ruth, no, you deserve to be in that room. And now I don't allow anyone to just, talk anything. If they want to listen, they'll listen. I can't control how other people may perceive me. I can only control how I react
Yeah.
to what is being said in the room. So I walk in with my head held high, confident, because I deserve to have a seat at that table and I will make them listen.
Yes. And I think it was Warren Buffett who said, if you want to live a happy life, also just avoid being like emotional about everything. Sometimes
Yeah,
how you react, like you said, that makes a difference. To say, for example, you are driving and someone you don't really know yells at you, right? Yes, it might have an impact or something, but the fact is that, at least for me, I don't know that person. I'm not emotionally connected to that person. I take it
yeah,
in some cases as just another noise, you know,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
brush it
exactly.
aside. And unless maybe something really violates my rights, and I'm very, very assertive when it comes to that. That's very
Yeah.
interesting. So, and you have also said how you deal with that, because sometimes you see that I have some female friends and stuff, and they say, some experiences that they share. So I'm glad um, you know, you keep your head high there. Is there anything that you'd
I
like?
think you have to. I mean, to be honest, I do have, I have a business partner who's a male, and
Yes,
there's certainly certain rooms where I walk into, especially in Africa,
yes,
where they don't want to listen to me. But
yeah,
again, it comes down to that whole point of having a great team, because there is certain things that he will say you need to address her about it. He wouldn't just like take it for the sake of, okay, that's the man, because we have equal rights in the decision. So again, also having a supportive team around you that supports and sort of like shuts down the negativity
yes.
also helps, I think. So that's also another way and another technique that women can use.
Yeah, that is good. I mean, like, until people say, like, oh, you need to talk to Ruth, she's the person who knows this subject, right? So then people will realize that, look, they have to talk to you. Otherwise, then
Yeah,
that's the deal, right? So,
yeah, exactly.
is there anything that you'd like to say to the audience in conclusion, as we wrap up, and for them to maybe remember you?
Well, oh, we talked about so much. I think first of all, if you are going into business or you're just trying to level up in life, first of all, make sure you find either a sponsor, a mentor, or a coach. It is always better to go faster with someone who's already walked the journey, than to do things alone.
Yeah.
Delegate wherever possible. Don't think you can do it. Don't even try and do it. You're gonna overwork yourself and burn out. It's not worth it. It's not necessary. Definitely understand that starting a business, you want to do everything, but yeah, it will cost you a lot more than if you delegate. So please, 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 do make sure that you delegate where possible. I would also say, make sure you surround yourself with smart people. Make sure you surround yourself with proactive people who understand and share your vision. Work on communication skills. They will help you overcome so many challenges. Those would be my nuggets.
This is very lovely and wonderful, because, the thing is, sometimes maybe reaching out to you. So, this is free insights that you are getting here from Ruth. And thank you so much for your time. I know you are very busy. I really appreciate you. And to the audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed, make sure that you can subscribe, so that when we bring more guests on the podcast, you can learn from the best. And those who trade and invest, there's the upcoming US election. Please trade and invest wisely. The market can be volatile, right? And may the markets be on your side. And I will see you on the next episode. Dear viewers, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. I started this podcast with the goal to share insights on personal finance, investing, and career insights. But did you know that out of all the people who tune in on this podcast, and by the way, I appreciate you, all of you, only 10% are subscribed. So if you are one of those people who are not subscribed, I highly encourage you to subscribe, so that when I post content in the future, you get notification, and also this podcast can grow. In return, I will bring in guests from different parts of the world who are successful in their own rights. The goal is to share their personal experiences on personal finance, investing, and also career insights. That way we can also learn from each other through our conversations. I hope you enjoy yet another podcast at Streetwise Economics. Have a wonderful time and may the markets be with you. Thank you again, dear viewer.